Logan, if you're nearby here, I'm going to turn things over to you. We're ready for a live stream presentation coming up. And Logan McLeod, who directs outreach for the National Association of Railroad Passengers in Washington, D.C., is next in line here. And I think you're going to find this very interesting in this presentation. Probably going to be a few technical things here to do, so it might be a minute or two.
Perfect. I'm just going to wait for John here to give me the hi sign, and I'll begin. No, I'm fine, buddy. Yeah. If I can get it off. There we go. And I'm going to take it a step further. No, I'm just joking. You know, folks, I have to say, I'm at a loss of words because my whole introduction was planned around a win last Sunday by my favorite team, and I'm sure many of yours, the Dallas Cowboys. And unfortunately, the refs had to go ahead and screw that up. And, you know, I guess the best thing about fans owning their own football team is at least plenty of money allocated to the refs' pockets. Am I right? So, you know, seriously though, both teams played a great game. Dallas had a hell of a season, and I'm not going to be sore about anything. But as much as I like to, I'm not here to talk about football today. No. In fact, the Texas Rail Advocates brought me here to talk about something much more pressing and pertinent to America's growth. We are here to speak about the obvious need to address the neglect of this nation's transportation infrastructure. To begin, my name is Logan McLeod. I am the Director of Resource Development for the National Association of Railroad Passengers. To give you some background information on me and about why we're here, I started working for this nonprofit about a year ago, and our goal is to advocate for the preservation and expansion of this nation's passenger rail service. Now, I don't pretend to claim to be an expert in this field. In fact, I'm far from it. I am just a concerned young American like these three gentlemen right here to the left of me. Our concern is future generations, millennials, will not have a modern, interconnected, national transportation system that will allow us to flourish in the coming years. As most of you in this room know, transportation is a driving factor in boosting GDP, creating jobs, and maximizing potential economic growth. Every developed nation, as Mr. Sharp pointed out, has a somewhat efficient transportation system around the globe. And unfortunately, and I don't know why, for some reason in this country, we didn't see an apparent need to reinvest into our transportation infrastructure. So, this idea is a growing concern amongst our generation. Now to go back a little bit further, I saw an example of young people making an impact on decision makers with Purdue's work in working to save the Hoosier State. Now I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was back in summer of 2013, the Student Senate of Purdue University passed a resolution calling on the Senate of Indiana to continue, the state of Indiana to continue funding the Hoosier State train between Indianapolis and Chicago. The Student Senate's resolution came at a crucial juncture where state support of the line was in doubt and cancellation of the train was likely. The students rallied, and Purdue is credited with being one of the main factors that decision makers decided to change their vote and actually continue the service for an additional year. This gave NARP an idea of starting a millennial campaign. This campaign was designed as a grassroots approach directed towards reaching younger generations and educating them on the need to create, expand, and preserve and improve this America's intermodal transportation system. It would help to amplify their voice and show stakeholders and decision makers, future leaders, a desired change. Now granted, it took me a while to find a pilot project, to kind of test the waters, if you will. But that came later on with the project brought to you by Texas Central Railway and their proposal for a high-speed between Dallas and Houston. I met with Travis Kelly, TCR's Vice President of Government Affairs, in D.C. for breakfast one morning and explained to him the initiative. He right away saw the value in doing this, and he put me in touch with Rebecca Cowell. Now, as a sidebar, Rebecca Cowell is an amazing young woman. If you haven't had the chance to introduce yourself to her, I highly recommend you do it. In fact, one of the reasons why we were so successful is that Rebecca was able to go out and make presentations to these young student ambassadors, to these student governments, about the benefits of this project. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't ever have been in touch with them. So thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, TCR, for providing this opportunity to show that this works. Enough of history. Now let's get right on to it. Our first panelist is someone who I think, to be honest with you, is the next governor of Texas. He is a real statesman, and it's been an honor to work with him thus far. Drew Carson is a digital forensic graduate student at Sam Houston State University, president of the Sam Houston State University Association for Computing Machinery chapter. He also is an active student government leader and senator. Drew is known for being instrumental in the creation of the Texas Infrastructure Student Alliance. The TISA, as he likes to refer to it, is a nonpartisan coalition of university student bodies in support of transportation and innovative infrastructure projects in the state of Texas. But I'll let him explain a little bit more about that in just a moment. Our second panelist is Nick Norbaj. Nick is an assistant researcher at Texas A&M Transportation Institute and founder of the Young Professionals in Transportation Houston chapter. Nick has a busy schedule. I mean, this guy was really working with me to do what he could, and he did a lot with the amount of time that he was allocated or available to him based on, his job. Houston community to educate residents within the Houston community. This man right here has a hectic work schedule, so I have to say thank you for him. He is dedicated to creating a task force within the community of young professionals to go out and educate members of the community or residents of the Houston community about the benefits of this high-speed rail project. Our third panelist is Daniel Cohen. Daniel is a founder and CEO of Redshift Writers. He is also the creator of Agree, Disagree, and Qualify, which is the program that we're using here today. The members of this Facebook group are viewing us live, so I hope none of you have anything out there, outstanding warrants or people looking for you because you're live and people are looking at you. This is made possible by John Whaley right here, who is the host of Houston's Executive Entrepreneur Hour. So thank you, John, for your work. So with all this, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Drew, and he's going to talk about Sam Houston's resolutions they passed in favor of the project and UNT's. Unfortunately, Troy Elliott was not able to be here today. He had a family emergency and didn't have a ride. So perfect issue about the topic that we're addressing, no alternative mode to get here. So he's going to talk a little bit about his resolution as well. And finally, I'm going to have Nick talk a little bit about the same, and then Daniel's going to talk about the ADQ program that we're using. So, okay, gentlemen, I'll let you go ahead, and Drew, you take it away, brother.
Can y'all hear me okay? All right, I'm going to put this up here just for now because I'm going to read you some stuff. First off, thank you, Logan. That was a very nice introduction. Governor, that sounds nice, but...
I believe in you.
So first off, I would like you to know that I'm a graduate student at Sam Houston State University, and I'm in a master's program that deals with digital forensics and like data acquisition. So I have no expertise in trains, but I have a supreme interest, and so does a lot of my members of my university, and that's what has kind of thrust me into this opportunity. All right. So with no further ado, I had the privilege of meeting Rebecca once again at our university, and she spoke with us, and my student government, members of my university, and members of the community came in, and we were inspired by the potential project and future infrastructure of Texas. So we had the need to write a resolution to kind of tell as many people as possible that we are the students of Sam Houston. 22,000 students of Sam Houston support this infrastructure that has been neglected. So, and I went one step further in creating with co-creator. Her name is Sarah Landsman, who is not here today either, but she is one of the most brilliant people I know. We created the Texas Infrastructure Student Alliance. It's a mouthful, but we wanted the word alliance in there because it kind of sounds like Game of Thrones, and That's what we love. But, okay, so that's my nerd plug for the day. So the Texas Infrastructure Student Alliance is a nonpartisan coalition in support of infrastructure projects within the state of Texas. Okay, it's not just about trains, but this project took our interest. And our mission is to unite Texas universities in support of mobility and innovative progress. So this is highly topical to our organization. So our goal is to represent as many student governments in Texas, and using the power of this tight network that we can produce to pass big resolutions and outreach to communities to raise awareness about these projects. And our main focus is to benefit the students and the future of Texans. Okay, so we are looking to the future, and we're looking for solutions to problems. Okay, so currently right now in the Alliance, we have Sam Houston State University, we have UNT, and Navarro College. And together the populations are over 50,000 students. Our goal by the end of the semester is to get well over 100,000 students with University of UTD and Rice and A&M possible, with talks of getting them in the Alliance. We want over 100,000 students represented. So that's a large network. It's kind of like a small student city. So I mean it's worth representing, in my opinion. So I'm gonna talk to you, kind of go down the list of the Sam Houston resolution and some of the needs that we felt that were important enough to put in here, and I'll go pretty quick on reading this document. So the first one was the creation of the Texas Central Railway will distinguish the state of Texas as a leader in development of mass transit infrastructure in the United States. So as students, and we got together in the student government, we believe in our state. We believe in Texas. I mean, a lot of us have loyalties to Texas, like if it was its own country. And we believe that it's important that Texas never stops innovating. We like to be the leaders. We like to be, that people notice the state. And we don't ever want to fall back from that. Second was capitalist economies, whereas capitalist economies and beliefs demand competition in a market in order to strive, thrive, and innovate. Okay, together as we drafted this resolution, we felt like alternatives to transportation could only be healthy to the theory of capitalism and the theories that we are taught at university and grown up with. So we felt like it was a very big need to cultivate a stronger market, just period. That's kind of a very Texan and American value. So second was, whereas student mobility is vital to a successful academic career and college experience, and the Sam Houston Association, the Sam Houston University Student Government Association is committed to supporting and providing student accessibility to and from campus. These next two also talk a little bit about mobility to campus, but as student government, it's a great concern to get the students to class. We have these loans, we have the scholarships. Now let's get to school. So this is one of our concerns that we want. So. For example, it is a growing concern in Sam Houston that just the ability to commute arises from Houston to Huntsville, Texas, and that's right up the I-45. It's completely relevant to the train. These difficulties are barricading the path for many students' educations and the future of us. So it was something we had to look into. We'll skip down a few. It says Sam Houston State University ought to support efforts to increase the number of students involved in study abroad and international internships directly related to the field of study. So we have a huge petroleum and oil and gas area in Houston, and we have a lot of international students that come into that area or that want to commute to Sam Houston, who does mainly security and criminal justice. And we need the infrastructure for the international students for them to be able to come here and study, get a good American education. I mean, we should want to accommodate, and I would like to see that in the future. And then skipping on a little bit more down, whereas the Sam Houston State University Student Government Association values accessibility as measured by every student's ability to participate in programs. So we thought about this and we looked at it, and we thought about alumni, and we thought about culture creating. So we hope that we can, in the future, hop on a train, come to the campus, watch the game and then continue back, you know, having a joyous day because we won that championship. And that's how culture is created. And I would love to see that being built, because right now, you know, you go to the game and then you just leave in your vehicles and you don't get the rallies and the parties and the parades. You don't see a lot of that, and that's what I'd love to see. Whereas convenient transportation is a major factor in quality of life, thus solidifying the importance of public transit infrastructure development, and ought to be a vital element in the university's and state's business development strategy. Okay, I'm not an economist, but I do know that if you build it, they will come. I believe wholeheartedly that the economics of the university and the state, and mainly the communities, will be better served with this infrastructure in place. You know, you can look at the access road effect, if I must. You know, by I-45, you go down any access road, there's businesses that are created. So if you build it, I think that it'll come. I'm very hopeful, and we are very hopeful as a student population. And then another one that was very large that a lot of our students came up to us and talked about personally. They said high-speed rail. They were worried about their safety traveling from Houston to Huntsville or commuting to any university. So we put in, whereas high-speed rail is the safest method of travel along all other transportation options, and recent studies show a declining interest in auto transportation and more interest in commuting time for electronic devices and productive work. So as a millennial, I know that I'm glued to my cell phone. Let's be honest, and I do a lot of work with it, not just social stuff, but it's a concern. It's a concern that we would prefer to do a lot of things with our time that doesn't necessarily mean driving. And many students fear for their lives every day commuting from Houston to Sam Houston, just as an example, because you can't go down the road and not see a crash or not see the traffic backed up. And this has some safety concerns. And when a student feels unsafe, I believe it's the obligation of the student government to not avoid that issue. I don't care if it's 1 or 1,000 students, it's an issue that we have to take up and have to look for solutions for the problem. So that's the gist of the Sam Houston resolution. And then later when I met Troy, who could not be here today, he's the UNT's president, he told me that they had already passed a resolution as well. If we can do we have that one as well? And what was what was really cool was there was a lot of similarities in these resolutions, and we didn't collaborate. You know, we had similar templates, but we never collaborated. And these are the issues that the students all across the bar are feeling. And if he pulls it up, you can read it. If not, a lot of the issues are the same. But I believe that it is time to start considering solutions and acting, and that's what my students are showing me. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Drew. Appreciate that. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to Nick, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what he's done. And with that, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I guess I'll just do the mic hold here. Well, my name is Nick Norboge. I'm an assistant research scientist with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. It's possible that maybe one or more people in this room and maybe even online have done work, have looked at TTI's research reports. We are affiliated through the Texas A&M University system. We really strive for providing objective analysis for all kinds of transportation issues. My role specifically is modeling, creating future forecasts, 20, 30 years in the future for transportation revenues. And so our group, we do quite a bit of work with TxDOT, but we do also quite a bit of work with multimodal issues as well. High-speed rail was a project that we worked on behalf of TxDOT. It was a very exciting and rewarding project. I'll share, during our discussion, I'll share a little bit more information about at least some of the preliminary findings from an assessment around the world. We haven't done any work on the TCR project itself, so we can't really speak to that, but at least kind of give a little bit of an experience elsewhere. In addition to that, I also started former chair of the Young Professionals in Transportation Houston chapter. I passed that along to another colleague of mine, so I don't have to worry about the day-to-day operations, and then I can stay on as a strategic advisor, which is a lot of fun, because then I get to take on projects like this. We started YPT. I started YPT, the Houston branch. It's a nationwide chapter, a nationwide organization across the country. There's 18 chapters across the country. But I noticed that, at least in Texas, Austin had a chapter and Houston didn't, and I lived in there. And I'm a very competitive person, and I said, this can't stand. So I started a chapter in Houston with the goal of really trying to engage young professionals. I knew that they had a voice in this debate, especially people that are involved in the day-to-day. And I also knew that with many of these firms, they'll have maybe one or two or maybe even three geotechnical design engineers within each firm. And so connecting the two or three Kimley Horman Associates with the two or three Klotz Associates, bringing everybody together could be a great forum to provide a centralized discussion. So we hold professional development events throughout the year. We hold once every month. Most of our events are drinking oriented, which is a great way to get a lot of folks to come out. We have about 55 or 60 members, full-time members, and it's $20 a year, so it's very low. And then about 350 people on our newsletter list. So we're growing, and I'm hoping that we're going to kind of continue to mobilize a little bit. We've also started a...
Nick, I'm gonna have to stop you there, man.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and move on to Daniel so we can get to the claims. He's actually gonna talk about the program, and then we're actually gonna get the claims out there where people are gonna weigh in and talk about the statements that we're making. So go ahead there, Daniel.
Sure. I want to thank everyone for having us out and tell you a little bit about our program. Our group is called Agree, Disagree, or Qualify. We are what we call a closed group for open minds. And is based on rigorously testing claims in line with three different values, which are free expression, eager education, and utmost respect. Not all online message boards adhere to that third value, so we work really hard to make sure that our moderators are on top of each of the discussions and that we're getting really good ideas and good feedback out of our group. You can test more or less any claim, and we allow the group members to assess, discuss, and sometimes debate the nature of these different things. We're currently a closed Facebook group, 1,100 members strong. And that includes people in policy, business, law, education, science, the arts, technology, lots of millennials, but we allow all kinds, of course. Many of those members are actually currently watching today's panel via live stream thanks to Executive Entrepreneur Hour and John Whaley, who's right over there. They'll be weighing in on our claims and submitting questions and comments for our panelists as well. Transit's clearly a huge issue for the future, and we're proud to have the ADQ community weigh in on it. So if you have any questions about our group or our members, feel free to either find us on Facebook, or you can come and talk to me after our panel, and I look forward to shaking your hand.
All right, perfect. So with that, we're going to go ahead and segue into the first claim. The first claim is a high-speed rail system connecting major U.S. cities would dramatically improve long-term economic growth. And Nick, I'm going to go ahead and let you take that.
Sure. Well, certainly would want to qualify this statement a bit. And I'll present this a little bit in the context of the Texas Central Railway, since that's such an important topic to all of us, at least here in this room. Probably at least on the benefit side, looking at it objectively, at least in terms of economics, there's a lot of factors. It really kind of depends on what you consider an economic benefit. But certainly one of the biggest benefits that high-speed rail can provide is the time savings. So I come in from Houston, have to travel up to Dallas. This trip to come to make this conference took me 2 days. It would have been really difficult to have driven up and back to up to Dallas and then back to Houston. So offering a service that dramatically reduces travel time all of a sudden opens up a new market for folks who might be in Houston and need to go for a quick trip, 1 or 2 hour meeting in Dallas, or vice versa. In Dallas, a 1 or 2 hour quick trip to Houston. So all of a sudden it opens up a company access. So not only are you, if you're involved in oil and gas operations, and maybe it's more strategic to be in the Dallas area, for you because of its logistics hub, all of a sudden, then now you have that closeness and proximity. So at least it's something to, of course, think about. There's been certainly studies across the world that some of them suggest that high-speed rail is absolutely an economically smart thing to do, and then there's been other studies, academic studies, that say maybe less so. And I think the important thing to remember here is to look at the specific context, and so comparing Japan to the U.S. may not be exactly appropriate, but it's also a flip side that doesn't need to be. So thinking critically about how this investment makes sense, and clearly it looks like TCR feels like this is a worthwhile investment to move forward. So.
Okay. Thank you. And now Drew's going to talk a little bit about from a student standpoint and what he thinks is in regards to what their feelings are with that statement. So go ahead there, Drew.
Okay, so with regards to economic growth, when Rebecca came to our university, we had quite a bit of meetings with the community and with the university, some of their admins, and because of the talk of this possible infrastructure being built, we had meetings that conjoined the town and the university and the students together to talk about what kind of benefits we would all receive. And just connecting the town, connecting everyone, getting them talking is important to me. I value that personally, and I think that when you start talking about things like this, businesses get built, solutions get made, problems get solved. So that is something that I'm already seeing firsthand just with the talk of the train. And I think that if it becomes more and more certain, they're just going to automatically pop up. It's common sense. It's common sense at this point.
All right, thank you, Drew. And didn't you have a conversation with the local mayor, too, about this? What was his reaction?
Oh, well, our mayor, Mac Woodward, was very interested and has become an instrumental character in getting the TCR to come back and back for multiple conversations because we would love to see economic development with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice System that's in Huntsville and our university. So he's very much a visionary in that respect as well.
That's good to hear. So the follow-up statement or follow-up claim to that is improvements in intra-city transit of distances more than 10 miles significantly improve the quality of life. Think you got some statistics to back that up?
A little bit, and I know maybe online we'll have some fact checkers that will be able to provide some additional data and information. But I mean, certainly having an urban area where you have a fixed grade separated connection point certainly enables it to where it really seems to matter is at peak period travel time. So at 5 o'clock rush hour, it's pretty challenging to add an additional lane to a freeway or to a highway. But conversely, if you have a public transit option, it's much easier to add another car on that public transit railway. And so you see that travel times almost, in many cases, in urban areas, on highways will double, whereas where on fixed rail transit, it maybe increases maybe a minute or two slightly, but it's not as much. So it certainly provides much more options that for all different types of folks to be able to get to their destination, and especially during that time period.
All right, perfect. So that leads us into our second claim. Public transit improves the production of knowledge workers by allowing them to complete tasks during travel. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let you do that, Drew, because obviously you're a student. And what are your thoughts there?
Well, this is a relevant claim that public transit improves the production of knowledge and workers. Is that which one? Can you repeat the question again one more time for me?
Public transit improves the production of knowledge workers by allowing them to complete tasks.
Yeah, so public transit improves the production of knowledge and workers to allowing them to complete tasks was a topic that we discussed actually while we were creating our resolutions. And just to make sure it was topical, I wanted to repeat it because high-speed rail recent studies show that declining interest in automotive transportation and allow more interest using commute time for electronic devices. That's what I was trying to get at with, this is relevant to the student population because we would love to have the extra time to stay more focused on what we're doing and to just hop on the train, hop off the train, go straight to the business or go straight to school and go back home. It was very goal-oriented, and we would love to see that, the streamline, if I must, of these activities.
Do you think that would be a correlation with higher GPA? Do you think an A+?
Well, I think that it would definitely allow for safer travel when we have college-type events, and that will keep us definitely more safe and out of the legal system. So yes, higher GPA could be a result of that.
Great, great.
Oh, you want me to comment a little bit about it?
I do.
I'll say my little bit. Well, again, I mean, what I had mentioned before, improved accessibility. So I had a friend of mine that I was telling a little bit about. She was a petroleum engineer. She worked for Exxon. And I was telling her about the high-speed rail train, that you know, there's a possibility that, you know, if it's built, they're saying that you can get from Houston to Dallas in 90 minutes. And her first thought was, oh no, I'm going to have to go up to Dallas, up to Irving all the time and have afternoon meetings, come back. So it was just, it's kind of the thought of an improving market, allowing for better access to both markets, both the fifth and sixth largest metro region in the country, being able to have access, being able to have those two metros 90 minutes away. You know, there's certainly can be some limited benefits there.
Okay. And that's a larger job availability. Say you live in Dallas and there's no jobs for whatever work or profession you're in, but there is something in Houston. 90 minutes would allow them to get there and back and be able to have that job, otherwise they couldn't. Correct?
Well, so, I mean, certainly I mean, the fare may, you know, even certainly would allow for folks to be able to travel back and forth as they need to.
Okay. Then we're going to go ahead into our third claim. High-speed rail is significantly more secure, safe, and sustainable form of long-distance travel than either car or plane. Now, this is debatable, but we're going to go ahead and have Drew talk about it.
Once again, this is a topic that was discussed in our resolutions that seems to be a trend amongst all of the students that we talk to, now reaching over 50,000 students that we represent. This is an issue that all of us students feel is a relevant concept. Is more and more cars are on the road, and that just increases your risk of accident. It's just mathematics. It's just fact. And I had the ability or the privilege to travel to Europe for 3 weeks and study the German culture, and I traveled a lot on their trains. And at nighttime or when there's events happening, you never see anyone drinking and driving. They just automatically go to the train. It's second nature. It's common sense. And I would love for that to become the standard, the status quo for universities, that any drinking and driving should not be tolerated or allowed, and it should not be in the culture to want to do that. And we are looking as the Alliance to change some of these culture concepts, and to, with this infrastructure, maybe we can facilitate these culture changes that we'd like to see in safety of the students and for the public. So that's why it's relevant to the students.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and have you address, because you brought up drinking and driving, which I'm glad you did. So the follow-up to this is mass transit railway systems significantly decrease drinking and driving. Now, would you say that's true? I mean, we all went to college. We had a good time every once in a while. We got behind the wheel maybe when we shouldn't have. But I think with better transit systems and something like TCR's project here, getting from, you know, Saturday's game back and forth would make it easier.
Well, there's no doubt that the culture is changing, and I would say that drinking and driving was probably a lot more prominent in the years past than currently. We're doing a pretty good job of raising awareness, definitely on campus, and it's something you don't do, but I could definitely see the logic, and the members of the Alliance see the logic behind having transportation alternatives, which would thus allow for a safer environment or a college environment in anything you're doing, and that may be drinking in college, because it's kind of goes with the culture with that as well. So yes, hands down, we would love to see the alternative to change this culture.
Wonderful. And then Nick?
Well, yeah, I'll just chime in here a little bit. I think this is an important issue because driving is the leading cause of death among millennials. And I think this is clearly an important issue. It's an important issue among many of our members. Many of our members are also socially drinking quite a bit. And so it's, I don't know if there's a show of hands if anybody has taken an Uber before. I absolutely enjoy Uber, but it's, in many ways, it's sort of a form of being able to connect to destinations without ever having to really worry about securing a driver or having to drive yourself. So I think to the extent that better, more robust transit's available, I think that there may be some evidence to show that there may be some limited causes there.
Great. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and follow it up with some Q&A. But first, can we give a round of applause for these gentlemen coming here today and talking? Now, I just want to preface this because I know you guys are experts. So don't hit them with a bunch of technical questions when we take some questions from the floor. Let's keep it focused around what we talked about today. So with that, if there are any questions in regards to what we presented today?
You might explain what Uber is.
Ah, Uber. Okay.
Uber is a transportation network company. It allows for you to call up a car on your mobile phone. The phone uses geosensing technology to tell you where your car is. And so a driver shows up. Usually it can be in their own personal vehicle, or it could be in a black car that shows up and takes you basically wherever you want to go. And it's increasingly becoming popular in most in urban areas. It's also not without controversy, particularly among taxi cab companies. I personally think that its potential for fundamentally altering how we get around is a bit maybe even unappreciated. I think it's a bit more than just a taxi company. I think it's got a chance to all of a sudden, some form of it could help address the first mile and last mile problem associated with transit, potentially. And as more of it gets rolled out, maybe there may be some more competitors in there that make it much more affordable.
Right. At the Southwest Rail Conference, the only question we have is, what is Uber? That's great.
By the way, I do that.
Okay, well, that's good. You, sir.
Do you see potentially being a role in some of the scoping meetings, FRA hearings, TxDOT hearings over these road projects where you've got a lot of anti-side showing up? Rural people.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why we created this campaign. That is the reason why Drew exists. That's why UNT did their resolution. And that is why he's creating this task force to go out to the community and to educate residents on the benefits of rail. Because this is a foreign thing. We are not used to this in this country. So right away, we're scared of change. We don't want to trust something that's foreign to us. So these guys right here who have experienced it and know the benefits, they are going to go out into communities and talk to them and let them know, hey, this isn't a bad thing. This is great. This is good for our economy. This is good for you. So, go ahead.
If I must, I think I was, if not mistaken, you were actually in the front of all the questions. Maybe, have you been to any of the meetings of the oppositions to, yeah, no? Well, I've been to the Walker County meeting and to the Grimes County meeting, and I spoke at the Walker County's meeting, and I was definitely in the minority, and it was scary to get up and to speak for this infrastructure project when you had so many members of rural communities not wanting to see it. But I represent not the university, I represent the students, and this is what the students have said. This is 22,000 and hopefully at the end of the semester over 100,000 students that are in support of this. So even though the scoping meetings may have been met with some opposition, there is allies, and they are on campuses, and they are just now coming into the job market. So we are here. We are here, and we would love to have the opportunity to voice this some more.
Well, I'd just like to add, maybe in contrast to Drew a little bit, YPT officially has a policy to where we try to stay neutral on some of these issues, so we don't go to try to make a specific stance on that. With that said, I've always encouraged all of my members to go out and understand the specifics of each project. And I'm not quite sure when all of a sudden politics got surrounded around modal options. I don't know how that actually turned out. I think it's really important for everyone, given technology and given your ability to access information these days, to really understand what the project involves and really come up with a clear decision yourself. And I think that that's very, very important, and I think that's what we're going to try to push out with this task force.
Now, we have this new technology at our fingertips, so we're going to use it. Do we have any questions from the viewers?
We do.
All right, great. Let's take them.
Sure. We have questions and comments, so I'm going to throw them both at you.
Throw them at us.
All right, so one was, good job to the guy who just mentioned driving being the #1 cause of death. I had to delete like a 12-line comment. Meaning essentially he didn't consider the upside of that. So I thought I'd just throw that out there, that people are being educated about some of the things that we're discussing today. A question that we're having regarding Houston, Dallas, and downtown population density, what it would take to be able to support a full transit system, and kind of some of the challenges that surround that.
That's definitely unique.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll at least attempt to try to answer this question. It's very tough. You can drive in downtown Houston, and I think it's this case up here, even in Dallas too. They're building a lot. They're building density is increasing in the city. There's sort of two directions going on, at least what I've observed, where you're starting to see the inner core getting dense, but you're also seeing continual movement out to the suburbs and even to the exurbs. So being able to challenge the challenge of sort of reconciling all of those policies together is very, very difficult. But one thing I would again encourage is, please, especially among young professionals, young millennials, please get involved. Get involved, at least in the Houston area, get involved with your MPO, HGAC. You can log on the website, get involved, offer comments. And if you live up in Dallas or wherever you are, getting involved in the MPO process and being able to state your position is a great way to get your ideas heard and responded to.
All right. Let's go ahead and take another question.
One person asked, what's more of a priority, the intercity transit or more of the intra-city rail?
God, I wish I had some of you guys up here. Jeez.
Yeah, this must be for the governor here. He's going to have to be able to comment.
That's a good question, and I'll get back.
Well, I mean, I guess it's a great question. I think it both matters. I think offering people options to be able to get to work without sitting in traffic is great. I think being able to offer options where people can sit and maybe send an email or two while they're traveling to Dallas would be a great option. So, I think at least in the future, we think staying involved and really having a clear vision of what's important. But what is most important is that it's all a network. Our federal interstate system, which many would say has been one of the most successful infrastructure projects across the country, was so successful because it was a nationwide plan. And so having an integrated plan to connect intra and intercity together is very important.
Okay. You want to read off some of the comments? I mean, are people becoming more knowledgeable of what we're talking about? What are some of the reactions as we've had this conversation?
There's a lot of discussion surrounding quality of life and also security in the group right now. So I'll give you a couple of comments. We have an agree on one of the claims. It says there's less room for human error when you're traveling by rail than driving. Our culture has people drinking and driving partly because things are farther than where they want or need to go, and partly because they have no other choice besides driving or spending more money during peak hours using Uber. So it does seem that there's some education surrounding some of the things that we're discussing. There's some discussions of air travel and the speed and ease of train versus driving. One of the things that people are bringing up right now that I'm seeing as a common trend on the board is not only that you can use the time during transit and during train time as productive time or as recreational time, but also that you have just a pure speed advantage, that you're at the next destination faster. So it sounds like some of the themes are running through the message board at this point. And there are a lot of stats that are being pulled as well about how many drivers are on the road. Over 188 million motor vehicles and more than 170 million licensed drivers travel over 2 trillion miles a year on our streets and highways, straight from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So it seems like one of the two most common themes that are running through the boards really are in this kind of security and safety, and then quality of life and economics.
Great. Thank you. Let's take one more question, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Pick a good one.
Okay. This is a classic question. What are some of the efforts that are going on surrounding funding of rail, and what are some of the different ways that both private and public could take steps to accomplish some of these networked systems?
Nick, we talked about that last night, didn't we?
A little bit, and I'm sure there's probably folks in this room that may even have a better idea, at least than I would on this topic. But it seems, at least, I mean, you know, there's the Obama's $8 billion, President Obama's $8 billion proposal to offer high-speed rail, to offer high-speed rail, at least to fund planning and even to some construction in certain limited areas. But I guess I wouldn't be too objective to say that there doesn't seem to be very much at this point in terms of providing funding for rail and rail transit services. Certainly on a funding, and this is seen across transportation, increasingly local governments are sort of having to come up with the funding and financing tools to meet some of their mobility needs. And I can't forecast in the future, but my guess would be that is going to continue. And local governments are going to continue to have to really work to come up with the types of funding needs to be able to meet their infrastructure needs. So again, that kind of harps back on having a great plan so that you can use and spend those funds wisely, I think will be very important.
I'm going to take this too a little bit. I think we can all agree in this room it's dedicated source of funding. Now, if you're a private investor, entrepreneur, and you're looking at ROI, why would you invest into something when every 2 to 4 years leadership changes and their idea about rail changes? Then the money's down the drain. So if you had dedicated source of funding where you know you're going to get money each year for that project, don't you think you would invest into something like that? And I think that is the key. I think that is the key, and I know there's plenty out there that share that with me. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here, and I'm glad that Union Pacific isn't here right now because I'm going to take their slogan and twist it a little bit. They are building a nation by moving necessary resources around the nation by rail. NARP, TSIA, the Texas Rail Advocates, and all other advocacy groups out there are trying to link the nation by supporting policy, ideas, and projects that mean to provide a more efficient national intermodal transportation system. Thank you for listening. God bless.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Very interesting, and I'm sure everyone who was on the internet participating in that enjoyed that too. This formally concludes the 11th Annual Southwestern Rail Conference. Thank you so very much for coming out. We hope that you got both some educational and informational outtake on this, and we hope to see you again next year at the 12th. So thanks.